1954. A vanity table in a quiet Midwestern bedroom on a Saturday evening. The room is still, lit by the warm glow of a small lamp. A mother sits before the mirror, her hands moving with quiet precision. There is the heavy, cool sound of a glass cream jar being set down, followed by the sharp metal click of a brass powder compact. The air smells softly of rose water and talc. But the strange part is this. Look closely at that counter, and you will not see a 12-step skincare routine. You will not find expensive serums or glass droppers. There are only 3 or 4 modest items sitting on the lace runner, most costing less than $1. And yet her skin is flawless, carrying a quiet dignity that modern habits rarely capture. These are 15 forgotten beauty brands that 1950s women couldn't live without. Now, before we dive in, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. We often look back at the 1950s and assume their beauty routines were simple, perhaps even outdated. But the truth is, the brands sitting on our grandmothers' vanities were brilliantly effective. They vanished not because they stopped working, but because the beauty industry realized it could not keep selling us the same single, multi-purpose jar for pennies. They needed us to buy 5 different bottles instead. What disappeared was not the result. It was the quiet efficiency of a generation that knew exactly what they needed. As we count down these 15 forgotten staples, pay close attention, because the closer we get to number 1, the more you will realize what we truly lost when these names faded from the shelves. And the countdown begins exactly where most mornings used to begin, at the sink. Number 15, Woodbury Facial Soap. For most of the mid-century, beautiful skin did not start with an expensive liquid cleanser. It started with a simple bar of Woodbury facial soap. Wrapped in its iconic paper, it cost only a few pennies at the local drugstore. When a woman worked it between her hands, it created a thick, rich lather that smelled of clean linen and faint florals. Advertisements promised the skin you love to touch, and women believed it. They did not need a chemical exfoliant. The gentle friction of a washcloth and the pure drying clean of Woodbury were enough. Today, we are told bar soap destroys the skin barrier, but looking at photographs of women from 1955, you have to wonder if they knew something we forgot. Number 14, Prell Shampoo. Before the era of sleek, customized plastic pumps, there was the emerald green tube of Prell shampoo. Squeezing it felt like dispensing thick, translucent honey. It was famous for being packaged in a sturdy tube that miraculously did not break when dropped on hard bathroom tiles. The smell was bracing, aggressively clean, and it produced a mountain of white suds with just a dime-sized drop. Prell was not about coddling the hair with botanical oils. It was about getting it undeniably squeaky clean before setting it in rollers for the night. Number 13, Cutex Nail Polish. If a 1950s woman wanted to feel put together on a tight budget, she walked down to the 5 and dime and bought a small glass bottle of Cutex. The sharp, unmistakable chemical scent of it would drift through the house on a Friday evening. It was incredibly cheap, yet the pigment was rich, laying down a coat of classic red or soft pink that lasted through washing dishes and scrubbing floors. She did not need a UV light or an expensive salon appointment. She only needed a steady hand and 10 minutes of sitting perfectly still. Number 12. Hazel Bishop No Smear Lipstick. In the early 1950s, a chemist named Hazel Bishop introduced a miracle to the modern woman, the no-smear lipstick. Encased in a cold metal tube, this formulation was dry, highly pigmented, and stubbornly resilient. A woman could apply it in the morning, blot it with a tissue, and know it would not leave a red ring on her husband's collar or her diner coffee cup. It was a revolution in a brass casing. Notice the pattern here. These first few items cost mere cents, yet they delivered exactly what they promised. They were not selling a complicated lifestyle, they were selling reliability. The object was cheap, but the standard of self-presentation it upheld was entirely priceless. Number 11. Sea Breeze Astringent. If cleanliness was next to godliness, Sea Breeze was the holy water. Sitting in a heavy glass bottle, this amber-colored liquid smelled fiercely of camphor, peppermint, and eucalyptus. Sweeping it across the face with a cotton ball sent a sharp, stinging shock across the skin. In the 1950s, that burn was not a warning sign. It was proof that the product was working. It was harsh, but it felt deeply purifying. But as we move from the bathroom sink to the bedroom vanity, the formulas became richer, the packaging heavier, and the routines a little more private. Number 10. Luster Creme Shampoo. In an era when liquid shampoos were still finding their footing, Luster Creme was an event. It did not come in a bottle. It came in a heavy cobalt blue jar. A woman had to dig her fingers into the thick, white paste, which felt more like cold cream than soap. Advertisements proudly declared it was the secret of Hollywood stars like Marilyn Monroe. And for a brief moment in a steamy suburban bathroom, a housewife could scoop out that rich, lanolin-heavy formula and feel a touch of that exact glamour. It left the hair soft, smelling like a high-end salon, without the aggressive stripping of modern detergents. Number 9. Yardley of London English Lavender. This was not just a perfume. It was a rite of passage. Stored in elegant, frosted glass bottles, the scent was herbaceous, powdery, and unmistakably clean. It was the fragrance of Sunday mornings, of a mother leaning in to kiss you goodnight, of quiet respectability. A woman who wore Yardley was not trying to be seductive. She was announcing her maturity. Today we are sold perfumes that promise to make us irresistible or mysterious. Yardley promised something much rarer. Dignity. Number 8. Halo Shampoo. If you lived through the 1950s, you can probably still sing the jingle. Halo was a revelation because it was not soap. It was one of the first synthetic detergent shampoos, promising to glorify your hair without leaving a dulling film behind. The amber liquid poured out thin, but it cut through days of hairspray and setting lotions effortlessly. It was the reliable workhorse of Friday night routines, ensuring every curl would catch the light the next morning. By this point, the pattern is no longer about products. It is about standards. These women did not need a 50-minute video tutorial to tell them how to wash their hair or scent their wrists. The industry had not yet convinced them that they were doing everything wrong. The knowledge was innate, passed down silently by simply watching their mothers. Number 7. Tangy Lipstick. For many young women, this was their very first introduction to the vanity table. Tangy looked terrifying in its slim tube, a bright, waxy orange. But when swept across the lips, it reacted with the body's natural chemistry to create a custom shade of soft, rosy pink. It was magic in a bullet. It gave just enough color to make a girl feel grown up, but remained subtle enough that her father would not demand she wipe it off before leaving the house. We think color-changing makeup is a modern internet invention, but our grandmothers were already doing it 70 years ago. Number 6. Max Factor Creme Puff. Introduced in 1953, this was the ultimate shortcut to a flawless face. Housed in a striking gold compact, it was a cream-to-powder foundation that offered velvet perfection in a single step. Opening it released a distinct, powdery fragrance, the smell of a woman getting ready to face the world. Pressing the soft puff into the pan and dusting it over the nose and cheeks erased shine instantly. It gave everyday women the matte, perfected look of silver screen actresses, all from the front seat of a Chevrolet. The early tricks solved problems. The next ones protected identity. As we step deeper into the list, we find the objects that required not just application, but a quiet, unbreakable discipline. Number 5. Breck Shampoo. For decades, the standard of American beauty was not a photograph, but a painting. The Breck girls were pastel portraits of women with impossibly soft, halo-like hair, featured on the back of every major magazine. Breck shampoo was sold in a heavy glass bottle that was prone to slipping from wet hands, glowing from within like liquid gold. It was one of the first brands to offer custom formulas for dry, normal, or oily hair. Pouring it into the palm felt luxurious, a small weekly indulgence that smelled of soft, clean soap and floral notes. It did not just clean the hair, it promised that any woman, regardless of her background, could achieve that soft, romantic ideal right in her own bathtub. Number 4. The Avon Lady. This was not just a brand, it was a visitor. Long before women could browse endless aisles at a megastore, beauty came to the front door. Ding Dong, Avon Calling was the soundtrack of mid-century domestic life. A woman would invite her local Avon representative, often a neighbor, into her living room. They would sit on the sofa, drink coffee, and look through small, waxy sample bullets of lipsticks and tiny glass vials of perfume. Buying makeup was not a frantic, solitary transaction under harsh fluorescent lights. It was a shared ritual. It was a quiet moment of female connection where beauty advice was given with warmth and respect. The closer we get to number one, the less this is about objects and the more it is about identity. These were not just habits. They were quiet standards, repeated until they became character. Number three, Noxzema. If there was one heavy blue glass jar in the house, it was this one. Twisting off the metal lid released a medicinal, eye-watering blast of eucalyptus, camphor, and menthol. Noxzema was not delicate. It was a cold, thick white cream that mothers used for absolutely everything. It took off stubborn lipstick, it soothed terrible summer sunburns after a day at the lake, and it served as a daily moisturizer. The intense, icy, tingling sensation convinced a whole generation that it was cleansing deep into the pores. It was the ultimate symbol of household intelligence. Why buy 6 different products when one blue jar could heal and protect the entire family? Number 2. Maybelline Cake Mascara. Before the invention of the modern mascara wand in a plastic tube, women relied on a tiny sliding red tin box. Inside was a solid block of black pigment and a small, stiff bristle brush. The application required a very specific unspoken ritual. A woman had to add moisture to the brush, often simply by spitting on it or using a drop of tap water, and then work it into the cake to create a thick black paste. She would lean close to the vanity mirror, holding her breath, carefully sweeping it over her lashes. It required patience, a steady hand, and perfect stillness. It was a deeply private act, often watched by a wide-eyed daughter standing quietly just outside the bathroom door. What looks small from the outside often carries the heaviest memory, and now we reach the one that explains all the others. The final item was never just about the makeup. It was about how a woman was treated. And now we reach the one that explains all the others. The final rule of the 1950s vanity was never just about the object. It was about what happened around it. Number 1. Charles of the Ritz Custom Blended Powder. To understand what we truly lost, you have to imagine walking into a mid-century department store. It was not loud. There were no harsh fluorescent lights glaring down on endless aisles of plastic packaging. Instead, there was heavy carpet. There was the hushed hum of polite conversation, and there was the Charles of the Ritz beauty counter. For a woman in the 1950s, buying face powder here was not a quick, thoughtless errand. It was an event. A mother would dress up, gloves pulled on, handbag carefully clasped, just to make the trip. She would approach the counter and sit down. Across from her, a beauty consultant in a pristine, tailored white smock would quietly examine her skin. Then the ritual began. Lined up on the counter were heavy gleaming crystal jars filled with raw, loose pigments. Soft rose, pale peach, ivory, lavender, and deep earth tones. The consultant would take a small silver scoop and begin extracting precise measurements of powder, placing them onto a smooth glass palette. With swift, practiced motions, she would blend the colors together right there, before the woman's eyes, adjusting the shade until it was an absolutely flawless, exact match for her complexion. The sharp sound of the metal scoop against the glass, the soft, powdery floral scent that filled the air, the careful attention of another human being. It was deeply personal. A young daughter standing nearby would watch this transaction with wide eyes, absorbing a silent lesson. That a woman's face was worth time. That her mother deserved this careful, quiet attention. Once the perfect blend was achieved, the powder was scooped into a beautiful presentation box, customized exclusively for her. Today, we stand in front of massive displays in self-serve beauty aisles, trying to match our jawlines to dozens of identical liquid bottles, hoping one is close enough. We scan our own barcodes and bag our own items. We have been sold the illusion of infinite choice, but what we actually accepted was isolation. We traded personal care for mass convenience. Charles of the Ritz did not survive the modern era. The industry realized it was far more profitable to mass-produce standardized shades, seal them in blister packs, and make the customer do the work. They told us it was faster. They told us it was progress. But look back at that woman sitting at the counter. She was not just buying makeup. She was buying an hour of being seen, attended to, and treated with complete respect. It was not vanity, it was dignity. And when those quiet counters disappeared, a certain standard of womanhood vanished right along with them. These 15 names and objects did not vanish from our vanities because they failed us. They did not disappear because they stopped working, or because women suddenly outgrew them. They disappeared because they were simply too efficient. They solved problems for pennies, and you cannot build a billion-dollar empire by selling a woman a single jar that lasts an entire year. But when we let the industry replace these trusted staples with endless plastic bottles, we lost more than just old formulas. We lost the quiet skills of application. We lost the patience required to sit still and perfect a single flawless coat. We lost the intimate, unspoken lessons passed down from a mother to a daughter, watching quietly from the doorway. Somewhere, though, the memory remains. Somewhere, a heavy glass jar is still resting on a lace runner. Somewhere, a mother is still teaching her daughter that true elegance does not come from a price tag. And without a word, the lesson begins again. What forgotten beauty brand do you miss the most? Tell me in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, please like, subscribe, and click the video on your screen for more vanished memories from the American home.